People are questioning Deion Sanders' latest move to hire Marshall Faulk because he has no coaching experience. But what have we learned about Deion Sanders? Well, he may be the biggest risk taker in college football.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow if you aren't already. Give me those 5 stars. Make sure you share this with a friend so that way we could grow our community. Let's talk about it. Deion Sanders recently, well, he didn't name him, but the Colorado Buffaloes program named their new running backs coach, which in effect means Deion Sanders hired his new running backs coach. And I think a lot of people are questioning the move, right? He brings in Marshall Faulk, who NFL legend, Hall of Famer, MVP winner, Super Bowl winner. He's done it all except for coach. And I think a lot of people are like, okay, this is a really interesting hire considering Colorado has a huge problem at running back. And I don't think it's a lack of talent at running back. I think it's a lack of willingness to commit to the run. I think it's a lack of stability on the offensive line. And I think it's a lack of just overall willingness to run the ball, which I kind of already said, but that's kind of the big one, right? If you're not going to commit to the run game, then how do you expect the run game to be any good? So I know a lot of people are questioning this hire. I had a lot of people reach out to me and go, this makes no sense. He's never coached before. Why would you do this? And it's like, right, there's that. But at the same time, Marshall Faulk has probably experienced and has done so many things in football. He'll probably forget more football than most of us will ever know. So that being said, I think it's a really risky but high reward type of hire. And I wanted to highlight some of Deion Sanders' biggest risks since being hired as the Colorado head coach. So that way people maybe stop questioning. I mean, you could question some of his moves, right? You don't have to agree with everything, but maybe we give it a chance before we go, that's the dumbest thing we've ever seen. So let's run through the list. First of all, I think the most glaring one is he takes the Colorado job after they go 1-11. And I think a lot of people knew that it wasn't going to be a 1-11 under Deion Sanders, and it wasn't always going to be that bad. But I don't think people realize how bad, like how rough, like the shape of the program was after Carl Durrell was fired, right? Or even with Carl Durrell. Like the team was just a disaster. You look at every metric, they were one of the worst college football teams ever. And little did we know that conference realignment was about to be a big thing at that time. And who knows if Colorado ends up where they are, if not for Coach Prime. So he takes a Colorado job after a cushy, he had it nice at Jackson State, right? He was kind of doing whatever he wanted, which granted he does it at Boulder as well. But we didn't know what it was going to be like for him to be at the Power 4 level. And who knows, maybe he sticks it out at Jackson State for another year, and maybe he gets another job, right? Maybe he gets the whatever other job opens, a Washington job, or maybe he gets the Texas A&M job, right? We don't know what could have been, but he takes a leap there. And it's one of those things where it's worked out for him. And let's go with risk number 1. He uses the transfer portal like never before. Now, the transfer portal, I don't think people realize this, or I think we forget this as a society because we're so used to it now. It's relatively new, right? It's not that old. There's guys playing in the NFL. Majority of the NFL, I would say right now, played in the era of college football without the transfer portal. We'll put it that way. We're still experiencing firsts with the transfer portal. So he used the transfer portal like never before, right? He tells the guys at Colorado from that 1-11 team, hey, please leave. I'm bringing in my luggage. It's Louis. I'm replacing you with as many transfers as possible. Now, like I said on the top, just because he takes a risk doesn't mean it works every time. The initial transfer portal class was not good, right? It had some nice pieces like Jimmy Horn, Xavier Weaver, obviously Shador, Shiloh, Travis, but the trenches were terrible. The linebackers weren't that good. And so you have to take everything with a grain of salt, but he was willing to take that chance in order to expedite this rebuild. Because if you go, okay, I'm going to build with this 1-11 roster, and we're just going to build around the guys we have, who knows how long it takes. Now, granted, they did lose some guys in the process that I feel like probably would have been pretty good if given the time and stuff like that. Like Anthony Hankerson was really good at Oregon State this past year. Jordan Tyson, Arizona State, is viewed as probably the best or one of the best receivers in college football next season. Who else? There's just so many guys. You lose out on a guy like Taylor Upshaw at Arizona, who he was a dominant force this past season or in 2023, at least. And so there was just so many risks that you take with that transfer portal. And then they go 4-8, and it's like, okay, the portal didn't work. And it's like, well, the portal didn't work by just bringing in everybody, but that was just a clean house. So he does it again, and he brings in guys who have started. He brings in guys who have played a lot and goes 9-4, right? And now everyone's changed their tune on Deion Sanders. Everyone's like, oh, well, he's one of the best coaches in college football. He's the best coach in the Big 12, right? We've had multiple rankings of top college football coaches, and Deion Sanders has been in the top, we'll call it top 15, top 20 at worst. And I think a lot of this is because people are starting to respect his method. And I think also it's not so obscure anymore, right? People are taking in larger transfer portal classes to expedite their process of their rebuild, to reload, whatever it may be. So he used the transfer portal like never seen before. He hires Sean Lewis. Now, I know the Sean Lewis experience didn't work out how Colorado fans had hoped, but at the end of the day, because Sean Lewis, obviously he gets demoted towards the end of the season, I think there was just too much wrong with that roster, right? I think the offensive line was terrible. I think the system didn't help mask their issues at offensive line. And I don't think Sean Lewis really modified his system all that much to sort of make up for the flaws. That being said, hiring Sean Lewis, who was a head coach at Kent State, who he was due for a head coaching job. Whether or not he was going to get it within that year or the next year, we don't know. But Deion Sanders took a chance on a young coach with a unique offense and pretty much knowing that he was a one-year rental because Sean Lewis was leaving regardless, whether or not he was demoted or not, because he was going to get a head coaching job. He got a head coaching job at San Diego State while being demoted at Colorado. So clearly that works out, right? Works out. You bring in, which at the time, a lot of people viewed it as one of the best hires. So I know sour taste in the mouth kind of thing, but it was a pretty risky and exciting hire at the time. Another risk he takes. He played Travis Hunter both ways, every single play possible. And Travis Hunter went on to be one of, I think, the best college football players I've ever seen. I think Travis Hunter is the type of college football player that I will tell my kids about. I'll be like, you'll never believe it. I was 24, 25, and this Travis Hunter cat, like he was playing receiver. He was playing defensive back. He was doing everything. He was running for touchdowns. They tried to get him to throw one time. I don't think it works, but he did everything, right? Travis Hunter was the guy. And Coach Prime, I think, saw an avenue to attract top talent to Colorado in a way that I don't think other programs would ever be willing to commit to, right? I think, and people don't realize this as much as they should, when recruits are being recruited, odd sentence there, but you know what I mean. When recruits are in the process, programs will tell them anything. They'll be like, yeah, Kevin, we think you're amazing. We think you'll start over Shedeur Sanders or Arch Manning, like whatever. Like they will throw out anything they can to get you in their program. And then all of a sudden when you're on campus, it's like they hate you, right? That's kind of the gimmick for most of these programs is every coach is your best friend when they're recruiting you. And then when it comes down to like, hey, you're on campus now, fall in line and do what we ask. Some people aren't ready for that. So I think this is one of the biggest recruiting tactics in college football history is Deion Sanders has shown, because what I'm getting at is programs will promise players all the time, yeah, we'll see what you could do on both sides, but then it's like they never really do it. Deion Sanders told Travis Hunter, hey, you're going to play both ways and you're going to do it every play, and he did. Travis Hunter played hundreds of snaps per game, was probably one of the more dominant players in college football, wins every award except the Thorpe Award, which is ironic because he ended up winning the award for the best defense player in college football. So irony is a word I'd like to use to describe that. So he uses Travis Hunter. He names his son Shedeur Sanders as a starting quarterback right away and didn't really take in any other transfer quarterbacks. Now, I think people are going to be like, why would he want to start a quarterback over his son? There was a time where Shedeur Sanders was just viewed as an FCS quarterback, and everyone was like, well, we'll see what he could do, right? No, he never wavered. He put full faith in Shedeur, built a program around him, and obviously Shedeur walks away as maybe the best Colorado quarterback of all time, or maybe top. He's at least on the Mount Rushmore. We'll put it that way. So there's that. And then also, I think this is one of the biggest hires that he made last year was Robert Livingston, the defense coordinator. Spent a lot of time in the NFL, had never coordinated a defense. And so everyone, I think, was myself included. I was like, how does this work, right? How does a guy who's never coached or never coordinated a defense, how does he succeed at a unit or called out a defense that the year before was terrible? Now, Again, the roster was bad, so there's that. But he comes in with no coordinating experience. He's younger. He spent majority, if not all of his time. I don't remember his entire timeline, but I'm pretty sure it was majority, if not all, of his NFL career at the NFL, or his coaching career at the NFL level. So he had no college football experience. And now, guess what? Robert Livingston just became the highest paid, one of the highest paid coordinators in Colorado history, or the highest paid coordinator in Colorado history the other day. So clearly, Coach Prime has taken calculated risks. I would say some have worked out better than others. And Jordan Seaton, I think, is another great example. Brings in a left tackle. Mind you, he was a 5-star freshman, and starts him right away and says, hey, we brought you in to play right away. Go play the most important position on the offensive line. So he's a risk taker. And I think we all need to sort of, I won't say respect it, because I think most people do respect him more, but it maybe question it less, I guess we could say, or like when it's a move like Marshall Faulk, right? Let's just see what happens before we start writing it off. That's all I got to say. When we come back, we're going to be talking about how Colorado has one of the tougher schedules in the Big 12. This episode of Locked On Best is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you could stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. We have so many fun episodes coming up, and that way you don't want to miss out, right? We're going to be talking a lot of offseason stuff. We may even dabble into some basketball. Also, we're about a couple hundred subscribers away from 7,000, so let's get there. Appreciate you guys for making me your first listen of the day, like I said. Let's talk about it. The Colorado Buffaloes have one of the tougher schedules in the Big 12, according to how teams did this past year. So our good friends over at the USA Today went through it, and they ranked every team in the Big 12 by their win percentage this past year. So, and who plays them and all that good jazz, right? And so I think a lot of people don't really understand that the Colorado Buffaloes are going to have a tough task next year, schedule-wise, right? They're going to have a challenge of sort of, you have to redo everything you just did, which doesn't sound fair, I guess you could say, right? Like Coach Prime just proved himself in a way that a lot of people said he couldn't. And now it's like, oh, by the way, go do it again, right? We don't have, we don't believe in you anymore. You lose two of your best players, which you lose two of the best players in college football. And then people start to question a lot about you. And I'm not saying that Colorado's like these other teams, but there's a lot of programs that lost a lot of talent. So I think Colorado can be good next year. That being said, they're going to have to fix some reoccurring problems that they've had, and they're also going to have some pretty definitive answers at some major positions. So let's run through the list of who has the easiest from most difficult schedule. Texas Tech, easiest. Baylor, this is easiest to difficult, like I said. Baylor 2, Kansas 3, BYU 4, a year after they just made it to the Big 12 title. And clearly they had a chance at the playoff, didn't work out. Arizona State 5, they just won the Big 12, and they're kind of on the lighter side of things. UCF 5, tied with Baylor. Oklahoma State and Cincinnati tied at 7. Houston 9th. Kansas State 10. Colorado 11. So it's based on win percentage of conference members and non-con. So the Buffaloes, they have to play against Georgia Tech to open the year. They have Delaware and Wyoming after that. And then they also have notable programs like BYU, Iowa State, and Arizona State, and Kansas State on the schedule. So I would say they probably are going to be playing 4 of the best 5 programs in the Big 12. So what do I make of this? Well, one, like I said, Colorado needs to get off strong starts. And I don't think that just means on a game-per-game basis. They need to figure out a way to make it so they are not finding themselves so much into the season, right? It felt like right? Week 1 against North Dakota State wasn't pretty. We didn't really know Colorado's identity. Nebraska comes around, blows Colorado out, and it's like, okay, same team, same problems. And then Colorado State comes around, they have a little bit of a better game. Like, I think they need to get off to a better start to the year. And Georgia Tech will be a great litmus test for that. Like, does Colorado start off strong, or are they starting off the year 0-1 and having to climb out of a hole and build some momentum another way by beating up on lower tier teams? So you got to start off strong, right? 2, you have to take advantage of your home games, right? Colorado gets to play. They get all 3 of BYU, Iowa State, and Arizona State at home, right? So take advantage of that. You can't be losing those games and not using your home field to your advantage. Now, I think a lot of people are like, home field advantage doesn't really play a factor. It does. I don't know if it's the difference between a win or a loss, but it is something that plays a factor. So Colorado needs to take advantage of that. And then 3, you just got to – this isn't something that – I mean, it is kind of something but that the players can control. But if you're Coach Prime, you just got to hope and pray. And obviously this goes with development. So there's more to this than what I'm saying, but let's just dumb it down a little. You got to hope and pray that these guys that you're taking flyers on out of the portal hit, right? And I hate to compare him to Mel Tucker just because of the disgusting history Mel Tucker has, but Mel Tucker's Michigan State team was really good after one portal run, right? They bring in Kenneth Walker, and it's like, oh my gosh, Michigan State's really good. And then a lot of things happen off the field as well, which is an ugly situation, but they struggle the next year. So if you're Coach Prime, you have to really hope that your talent evaluators are on their P's and Q's, and that you as coaches are able to develop these rosters to the best of your ability. So yeah, Coach Prime, Colorado got one of the toughest schedules in the Big 12. I think it'll be a good test for them. In my way too early predictions, I had them going 7-5, which I don't think is too bad. I think I wouldn't be shocked if they go 8-4, but anything over 8-4, I'm a little reserved right now. I need to see a little bit more roster additions. I got to see them play, obviously, which we got like 190 something days until we get that. So we have quite a ways, but I think Coach Prime and Colorado have proven that they're on the right direction. It's just a matter of putting it all together. So when we come back, I think Deion Sanders, in a way, was one of the biggest stories of the Super Bowl. And I don't think enough people realize that. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Like I said, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, give me 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcast. And let's dive into why I think Coach Prime was one of the bigger stories of the Super Bowl and people didn't even realize. And this is a huge recruiting pitch. One of my biggest things that I've talked about when it comes to Coach Prime is that he has a swag level, an aura level, a social media reach, a cultural impact that no other coach in college football has. And you may be wondering like how that's possible. You may just be like, we get it. He played football. He was good. He played some baseball. He was good. Right. But no, he was an elite football player, really good baseball player. And he's also one of the most iconic athletes in sports history, which is saying something because there's been quite a few. And I think we saw this during the Kendrick Lamar halftime performance. I don't know if people realize this, but he was wearing Coach Prime's signature shoe. It was kind of hard to tell because his pants were a little, had like those bell-bottom pants, I guess is what they look like to me, or boot cut, if you will, were really big at the bottom. I don't, I'm not a jean expert, so I'm not going to pretend to know, but let's just say the pants were baggy on the bottom, so you couldn't really see the shoe, but someone highlighted it, and I was like, you know what? How many programs in college football have a coach who, this was my exact post, right? Because I thought it was pretty good. List of coaches who with a signature shoe. Deion Sanders, that is the list. Literally none, right? Colorado head coach Deion Sanders is the only coach, probably in football, to have a signature shoe, and is the only coach in football to have a signature shoe that was worn during a Super Bowl halftime performance by one of the most iconic artists in music right now. So, again, I think what Colorado lacks in, say, NIL, traditional history, I guess like conference prestige by being in the Big 12, they make up for by the fact that their head coach is one of the more popular people in culture and sports and entertainment, right? He's literally Deion Sanders. He's Coach Prime. He's prime time. And I think people undervalue that, and I think this is another huge recruiting tactic for Colorado. I mean, even the official offer boxes that they send out, it's the print of his shoe. And so what better way to advertise your program than being like, hey, Kendrick Lamar just wore our coach's shoes. So pretty big deal. Really, really cool to see that. I'm not going to pretend I understood the entirety of the halftime performance because I was driving home, so I didn't really see it. I did watch the video on social media. Very good. I liked it. The A minor line was obviously a very popular one, unless you're a fella in Toronto. But that being said, I think obviously Deion Sanders wasn't the biggest takeaway from that performance, right? Serena Williams was there, SZA was there, and all those performers. But Coach Prime having his signature shoe sported in the Super Bowl, I think is just a crazy, like, if you would have told me 3 years ago, like, hey, Colorado's going to get a head coach who's one of the most popular people in sports and entertainment, I'd be like, Colorado? The Buffaloes? Like, Colorado, the Buffaloes, right? And I just think it's really cool to see how far they've come. And I think it's cool to see how far Deion Sanders has taken this program in terms of being recognized on a national brand. So that's what I have to say on that. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thank you for making me your first listen. And thank you for tuning in to Locked On Buffs.